Welcome to our booth. I remembered this morning that I am the name for sale, so I am also on this. And you're representing SemiAnalysis, and Lambda is our amorphous bank. Bank of Lambda. Thank
Bank
you.
of Lambda,
Thank you, Lambda. We appreciate it. What are you excited about this year? Try to recount what you were feeling last year at NeurIPS and how different that is
so
now.
NeurIPS comprises of like two things, right? One is like parties, which are actually more fun than you would expect. I think people are like, oh, AI researcher parties. It's much better than San Francisco AI researcher parties. Then the other side of things is just like walking around poster sessions. And so last year in Vancouver, the main thing I was doing, I was just walking around looking for people with verifiable RL, anything RL and anything verifiable, right? So like, I remember the first NeurIPS I went to, it was like 21 or 22, and I was like, I would walk around, I'd stop at only posters that said the word transformer. Like, and anything that didn't say transformer, I just didn't read it. And then like, that's evolved. And last year, like, obviously I stopped at a lot of random posters as I've learned more. But last year was the first time I like stopped at a bunch of like RL stuff and verifiable, test times, sort of scaling stuff, that, verifiable RL stuff, all that kind of stuff. This year I have no clue what to stop at.
I know, it's like, what do we do now? There's going to be so much RL stuff, it's like a wave. It's hard to know. And I feel like last year's RL stuff was still like the early things. I would guess that maybe like Vine PPO was at NeurIPS or something. There was like a couple early things last year that were relevant. And like the star work from Stanford.
Well, the whole reason to stop at the posters is not like that's the poster you want to talk about. It's this is what they worked on 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So what did you work on then, and what are you working on now? Is like, that's the interesting thing to talk to them about, because they're obviously on top of their field, whether it's like RL or whatever they're doing, they're on top of it. So like it's more about like stopping at a poster with interesting keywords and then not talking about the poster at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's good meta for people to have out there. It's like, it's the way that you can corner.
Wait, am I giving away too much alpha?
No, there's so many posters. It's so overwhelming. It's just like, it's the nice way to figure out how to corner people. It's like, it's not too hard to figure out where I am on a few occasions giving talks or whatever. Like, okay, I'm screwed afterwards for 30 minutes. Back to the research thing where we don't know what to look at is actually somewhat interesting. Because I feel like the path of progress has been so obvious for a while, and like academics could do stuff, but it's like,
we're in the age of research.
I know, it's like, is this maybe a little bit true? Is that kind of bearish for AI? If it's like, or is it good for AI that is just like,
it's interesting that there's like, there's no incremental thing that takes up the majority of the headspace anymore, I guess is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is like, well, actually just every layer is innovating hugely, right? Like, there's tons of gains in pre-training, there's tons of gains in scaling, there's tons of gains in quantization and systems, but there's also tons of gains in RL stuff, and both the like, infra side of things and non-infra side of things, right? So it's like,
we took the low-hanging fruit, and now the low-hanging fruit is not
no,
obvious.
but like, it's, when you talk to someone at a lab, they say there's a ton of low-hanging fruit, right? Like,
but it's not as obvious as turning on inference time scaling on top of everything.
I guess, but like, you guys released a new model recently, and I'm sure there was, if I go ask you, hey, here's all the low-hanging fruit we got, go ask Dirk, here's all the low-hanging fruit we got, like...
Well, the lore is like, I made the SFT dataset for reasoning in like a weekend, because we had like unlimited Azure credits for a certain period of time, and I was just bombarding like DeepSeek endpoints. But I was like, we haven't made our thinking SFT set, so I was like, let's just get as many tokens as possible.
Is this how you legally distill from OpenAI, is by distilling from DeepSeek? I'm trolling. Sorry.
We just distill from OpenAI directly. We do it for research purposes. The AIs whose models are intended for research purposes and click to see our responsible use policy, but they're still Apache 2 with no click through and no terms of service. But there is low hanging fruit, and it's like, it would take a meaningful amount of GPU hours on our scale to like do inference on DeepSeek, and a lot of the tooling to do batch inference on a model that needs to be served multi-node is just not that good. And it's like, we also used Frontier a bunch, which is like the US AMD supercomputer, and we did a whole bunch of like Qwen 32B because it works on a one node 8 by like MIX whatever rack, and we use millions of GPU hours on synthetic data because we have this Frontier lying around. And it's like, that's very much AI2's data vibe, and there's a lot more.
But I, at least like from what you've put out from the most recent model, and I talked to Dirk a little bit, you guys both have indicated there was like low-hanging fruit on the most recent models, and I'm sure you feel that way about the next one.
There always is. I think there's just like, I think part of AI2's balance, especially in parts training, is that we like bring in the best students from UW who are all like super excited, top few PhD students in the world, and they have like their things that they want to work on, and a lot of it is just like building a platform where they can run with it And like there's like one student like Scott and Victoria are two people that were doing all the DPO stuff, and he had this one DPO paper, and it's like we just got massive gains from doing DPO. And this guy is just like, I have my chance to prove my paper on the Olmo scale, and he just goes like crazy hours and he does it. And it's like that's not really that. Like it's not like I'm giving an engineering plan to some full-time employee. It's just like doing it between the hours of 10 and 2 a.m. for the week training the 32B model. And I'm like, okay, I've got to go to bed. Like, good luck. It's not broken right now, right?
Well, so Elon Riz is paying people to do this. But I think you have another level of Riz that's above that. You're not even paying the UW students.
We pay
to do
them
this.
a little bit. They're student collaborators.
Oh, okay, buddy.
Like,
let me go look up what the PhD
They need to be paid
is.
more. They're underpaid. I agree they are underpaid. But the students are fun to work with. But it's a very different dynamic of everybody.
Has any lab started just like, oh, they work at AI too, maybe I should like interview them?
Probably.
Is this like a thing?
Probably not as much as they should, because AI2 is out in this like Seattle bubble and people kind of ignore it. But I'm always one of the most prominent worriers about poaching. Because with a small team, it's just like you lose 3 people on your back a few months realistically, and it's just so hard.
There's like a couple labs at Stanford where I know just got pilfered by, even Meta most recently, right? So it's like, they'll just like, well, we need people. Where should we go? Okay, here's the like active players, but what if we want to pay people only $1 million or $2 million, right? Instead of paying them $10 million, well, let me go find the PhD students and offer them that, right?
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the next level of the talent drain, is like
maybe SemiAnalysis when we
Well,
do maybe we should
we
should start trying to poach from AI too.
No comment.
No,
The
I'm
lead
just kidding.
person from Molmo, or one of the 2 leads, it was like Chris C and then Matt Detchka. He like had left AI2 for a bit, and then there's the New York Times article where he famously like turned down 100 million from Meta, and then Zuck offered him 200 million. So it's like people are looking. You'd probably be like up there with the best possible super intelligent. Like if I was gonna just throw money at a researcher that hasn't really been brought into the scene yet, he's like up there.
Yeah,
He's so good. So it's like, I don't know. We skirt by, but also giving people
What's
a lot
it like
of
here, right? Because like a lot of people, you guys have the most open source stack here. Whether it be on your data, on your recipe, all the checkpoints, all your RL stuff, you guys have so much open source stuff here. Is Olmo like disproportionately represented by building upon Olmo here? Or I don't want to say disproportionately, but like it's
we've done analysis for like what do people use Olmo for, and I think there's a lot of interpretability research that's done by releasing intermediate checkpoints, and then especially post-training data is really heavily used. But that post-training data is not just academic, because it's like people like thinking machines, one of their examples loads one of our data sets, but it's also just like a lot of startups and small companies will pull it in, or like when we did Reward Bench, which is like a tiny academic project, it's like tons of companies are also just like, oh yeah, we should have this around and or use this infrastructure as an early thing. So I think that definitely gets adopted. And then whatever is the best pre-training data, I think gets used a lot at the time. And that kind of oscillates between like AI2's Dolmo is it, and then like Hugging Face with FineWeb has been it, and it kind of goes back and forth. And then like DCLM, whatever is clearly the best at the time gets used a lot in research. But I think that there's like, we would like to see if people can do continued pre-training on specific domains to see if that could work. Because our intuition is that you need the pre-training data and the checkpoints, because you have to like mix the domain in with the web, otherwise you're going to have instability, which is something we would like to see. But I think that it's still hard to get a new pre-training code base set up on a cluster unless you have really good talent. Like it seems like you can take Megatron off the shelf and use it, and like Megatron's a bit better, but it's still really hard. And the same thing for Olmo Core. So we've had a few collaborations where somebody from like astrophysics is like, I want to train this model and use Olmo to all this sort of special data, and it's like there hasn't been like really cool examples, but there's a lot of inbound on it, so hopefully it can make it a bit easier to use and do this. And like obviously having bigger and better models helps to do that.
Makes sense.
Scaling, I think scaling will help. The scale that all these Chinese labs are doing, and then like Cursor's obviously built on some Chinese large MOE of some sort.
That's what I was wondering, because like when I look around at the models, a lot of it is built on top of the Chinese models as well, right? A lot of the research is. So I was curious, like how much of the industry like cares, I guess, like about, hey, here's just the best open weights model versus like, actually I want it to be open source across all these dimensions for my work.
People
are
try
there
it.
certain areas where it matters more versus not? Interpretability, you gave that example.
I think there's like
besides that-
healthcare stuff. So like AI2 has some early collaborations on like cancer research, another thing that needs patient data, and they want to try building on this open research. I think that's all a lot earlier.
Why does healthcare care about whether it's, I guess, just like
I think
cautiousness of not using a Chinese
I think you like
model, or-
can't release the data. Might be more on like the flexible side, which is like being able to train part of a model with like specialized data, but it's just operationally easier for them to onboard.
I guess I more so meant like not collaboration, but like, hey, we dropped all this. Like they're just taking the code and going, or taking the weights and going.
Not a ton. I mean, like we got inbound from like Databricks, so like we're gonna try it. So I think that's like we're constantly in and out of this boundary of performance where it's relevant, which is like the thing that I say internally all the time is like we have to bet more. Like the company, you need to put more of the company on this in order to get to this next scale, because then there's just way more interesting things that you can do, like the actual like fully open coding assistant or whatever. I think it just becomes far more interesting at that level of performance. Or at the 32B model, if it's solid, you can do automation tasks with it and a lot of information processing, and they might like do retrain different stages of our post training to do that. But like, it's not the like sexy stuff.
Nathan, today, new open source model, not
Yeah.
from an American company,
Yeah,
not from a Chinese company, from Mistral. What
we
you
accept
think?
them. Seems good. I'm happy they released base models. I think that like that's coming back around because everybody like it seems like there's real demand for base models.
Okay.
And because people want to post train their own thing. I mean, see Cursor and Composer, that very likely is a post train that they did because they have a ton of data.
Yeah.
And they can do a lot more.
One sort of like, I guess, like last question, I'll answer it too, and I've thought of my answer for like the last like couple minutes, and I'm gonna jump it on you. We've had these leaps, right, in various domains, and depending on how much you specialize in the domain, you could, people can point at, like, if you're in pre-training, people can point at like 5 to 10 leaps over the last few years, right? If you're in RL, there's 5 to 10 leaps. What do you think the next area of like leap growth, like what is something that you think will come and probably will be heavily discussed here, right?
I don't have a huge leap thing, but I think token efficiency is underrated. So it's like we didn't release these plots, but we did a lot of like Pareto plots, which is like eval performance and number of tokens per eval. And that's the thing that we want to be like if we're like
Number
getting
of tokens generated for the eval, or number of tokens used to train?
for at inference time. Because it's like if we're reasonably close to Quen and NVIDIA on performance.
That's what Opus was, right? 4.5
yeah,
Opus.
and like this is a big thing.
Slam down the token
because
volumes.
it just makes it's cheaper and faster.
And
so
5.1 as well, right? GPT 5.1 codecs really slammed.
So I think there'll be a lot of interesting research on that.
My
it's a
Gigabrain thing, and I only thought about it because you're kind of against it, was the continual learning stuff. I know. You're like, oh, shut up, Dylan.
It's a long-term continual learning is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I just think that when industry is building, we're building the mega computer for the first time, and they're going to build it for sure. I'm like focusing on the thing that is for sure.
Yeah.
And the research, it is good research problem.
Yeah. I guess that's interesting. You guys, despite being a research org, don't go for the moonshot silly shit, right? You guys actually just go for like open sourcing, like the Pareto frontier of what we have. Today mostly. Is that a fair statement, or is that not fair?
It's because it's hard to get all the setups right. I think there's famously these numbers on how much compute goes to different parts of the org, where it's like you'll say like pre-training gets 40%, post-training like 20%, long-term research gets 5%. I think AI2, we've talked about this, and it's like if you break these down, like AI2's long-term research percentage should be much higher.
Should be, or used to be?
Should be. And it like kind of is. It's just like the distribution of projects, a lot of things you won't hear about because it's like just hard to have impact in that space as well. So I do think AI2 does.
That's the interesting thing about labs as well, right? OpenAI has over 500,000 GPUs working on R&D, right? Let's call it R&D. But then when you look at like frontier scale models, their pre-training is not even 100K GPU scale yet, right? Like GPT-5, like not even 100K GPU pre-training scale.
Yeah,
so it's like
hard to know where that actually goes.
Huge amount of stuff working on. Now I don't know if it's RL or long-term stuff, but it's interesting. The mix is quite different.
Yeah, I would like to know more about that, but it's like
it's hard to
know what they actually share too.